Are we awake? Awake and alive? Well, my name is Zach. I am here with the basketball team up front and my husband, Tyler. It's great to see everybody this morning. And if you're here for the first time or you've been here several times, we welcome you. We understand that there's a lot of things you could be doing on Sunday morning, right? How many of you guys have allergies now? Yeah, I woke up with allergies and did not want to get out of bed. But we're happy you're here. We're happy that you joined us and that we can create new connections, new relationships, and have a better community through our time together today. So we're going to invite you all to fill out our digital connect card, which I think is up there. Yep, you can jump on there to say hi to us, to send a prayer request in, any of the events that we have going on. We'd love to have you sign up on there. So just to connect and get all the different ways that we can support you, you can support us. We're in this together. There's also a Church Center app, which this is new to me. I think it's pretty cool. You can go on there and see all the giving updates, all the, if you need to online, send some offering in through online, you can do it on the app there. There's a calendar, there's groups that you can connect with. So there's a lot of different ways to connect with our community through this app. And as you all know, digitally, this is kind of how everybody's going today. So instead of having you show up and sign up on the little paper. I think most people don't even know how to sign their name anymore, right? My kids aren't learning cursive. They're like, what's cursive? I'm like, oh my gosh, feeling old. But anyway, so get on the app. It's a great way to connect with us. We actually are trying some new things, as you saw today. How many of you guys liked coming up and being able to do offering all together up front? I thought that was really cool. We're still figuring out the connection of between me giving them their offering and him praying and me getting up here and all that kind of stuff. But we have another new process that we're introducing, and basically all of these changes, some of you have been around to see two churches merge. Some of you are here for the first time today. Whatever your situation is, we're building or we're working on building a safe space and a greater space for people to come to. So when Paul says in the Bible, be all things to all people, you know that's not very easy, is it? Because everybody has different backgrounds. Some have grown up giving offering and tithing with passing the plate. Some people have no idea what that even is about, and some people feel really offended that the church would ask for money. I will tell you, sitting on the board several months ago for the first time, I got to look through our budget, and I'm like, our dumpster costs how much money a month? Like, what? So there is a lot of money that it takes to make this all work. You know, Miss Kylan in the back is going to take the kids in a minute. I'm sure she would do it for free, but I'm really glad we're paying her to watch our kids. I don't know about you guys. So little things like that, it's just great to be able to contribute, be a part of the community. So instead of passing the plate like we normally do at the end of the service, there's a couple different ways you can give. You can go on the app. You can go online to MeizonChurch.com. You can text a certain amount to the number on the screen, or you can mail it in or leave it in the boxes in the back. So if you did bring it in physically, drop it in those little black boxes in the back there. Or if you want to do it any other way. I know sometimes, for me personally, giving electronically and then somebody passing the plate and it being really awkward, being like, no, but yes, but no. Like, yes, I want to help, but no, not right now, not in this physical moment. So we're just trying to make that easier for all of you and for all of us as well, because it's a lot easier to connect in that way. We did find, how many of you guys were here for noisy offering? Okay, so we found... Well, we didn't find. The person that put it there found that we hadn't found it. A big bag of coins to add to our total. So we have a total of $42 from the noisy offering. But I think we have another $42 in coins in that bag. So anyway, we do noisy offering every time there's a fifth Sunday in the month. So if your kid, our kids love gathering up coins and stuff. The noisy part is the coin part. You are allowed to make it not noisy. Yeah, it can be cash. That's not a big deal either. But these are just little offerings that we get together and pick a specific service that we want to help in our community, in our local community, and give to them. So I am now going to put these kiddos out of their misery and send them back with Miss Kylan. So all of the kids can go back there. Today we're going to continue our series called The Big Picture. I'm really excited. I got to get here early and kind of hear as they were mic checking and everything. And our three fearless leaders are going to all be on stage at the same time. which, if you remember last time that happened, there was a dance-off. So I'm not sure what's going to happen this time, but we're really excited to hear what the big picture is for Meizon Church. So thanks for being here.
There we go. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hey, so all these intro videos, like Drake makes these things. And I know it's like, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but yeah, like Drake's been awesome. He's stepping into this role and he's been making all our content online and social media and stuff, and it's been really good. I'm actually officially now old because I don't know how to do certain things with technology. There's like a threshold, there's a line that you cross, and when you cross that line, it's like, oh no, I'm now that guy. I'm going to start saying things like the Google. And I have no control over it. It just happens. And so anyways, Drake's been really great at that kind of stuff. So I'm really thankful for that. We are in a series called The Big Picture. And we've been talking last week and then this week about just kind of being able to see just a part of the picture, and God has a bigger picture for us. If you were here last week, I shared a lot about how sometimes we have to make decisions and we have to make moves towards God, and we don't know what the outcome is going to be. We don't know how it's going to turn out. We don't know the end of the story before we start. And I know, being married to someone who really loves to know the end of the story before we start that story, that sometimes that can be a struggle for some of us, right? Because we want to know. We want to see the big picture. We want to know what things are going to look like. You know, any 60 or 30, 60, 90 people out there, you know, like we want to make a plan and execute the plan and then be able to see how the plan all goes the way that we want it to. But very rarely, at least for me, in my experience, the plan doesn't usually go the way that you think it's going to go, does it? And so, right? And so what I think, what God is doing is God has this big picture. And we can only see a little bit of it. We only see this much of it, and there's this much left, right? But sometimes God gives us these little peeks behind the curtain. He kind of lets us see a little bit more than what we can see. But in order for us to see that, we have to kind of like stop being so laser focused on just this little part of the picture. We have to kind of take a step back and get some perspective. And so this series has been really good because I feel like it's been really encouraging for us. It's been encouraging for me even to look at that and to be like, okay, I know that there's something that I can't see that's happening here, and I'm going to trust God that story is going to be good, that picture is going to be good, and I'm not going to be afraid to move forward in it. And so today what we wanted to do was we wanted to kind of superimpose that big picture story to us as a church, Meizon Mission. What is the big picture for us? What's the big picture for our community? Where is God moving us? How is God moving within our community? And what things are we doing to move forward in that faith? So if you have questions, last week I said this, if you have questions, you can text your question. We didn't get any questions this week. I don't know, it's weird. Nobody texted us any questions. So I'm giving you one last chance. If you want to text us a question, the number's on the screen.
It's an ultimatum.
No, it's more like, it's kind of like that thing where it's like, I'm always afraid because now I'm going to get the snarky questions, like all the
Yes.
you know.
I mean, technically we got a couple of questions, but they were all...
We tested it. We didn't know if it worked.
Snarky.
So when we were warming up this morning, Drake was like, hey, can you guys text us some questions? Because we hadn't gotten any and we didn't know, maybe there was something wrong with the number. And immediately we got 3 questions that we could never ask in public. And I was like, yeah, it works. Thanks, guys.
So I'll also say this number is actually the church number. So if you don't have, it doesn't have to just be now that you text this number. You could text this number in the middle of the week, and you'll be able to get one of us. Or you can call this number and let us know if there's something going on as well.
Yeah. So we're going to start off our questions with some softballs and just some things that we can answer really quickly to give you some background on us. So question 1, would you tell us all how you became leaders at Meizon? How did we get here?
This was a question that I had to answer a ton this last week at General Assembly. Like, what's Meizon Church? I haven't heard of Meizon Church. Where's Meizon Church? And if I would have said First Christian Church of Gainesville, they would have thought of the 17 different First Christian Church of Gainesvilles that exist. To
See,
me,
I have a disciples question with that, though. Like,
Okay.
so if every church is called First Christian Church, how do
Yeah.
you know which one's which?
well, you don't. That's why you have to specify even the state.
Because like all I imagine at that conference is people being like, I'm from First Christian Church, and then other people being, yeah, I'm from First Christian Church, and it's like,
And Central Christian Church and Community Christian Church, both of those are also
those are
very
yeah,
popular.
it's great.
Yeah, I mean, to the point where the second youngest clergy in our denomination in the state of Florida, she was ordained at First Christian Church of Gainesville, Texas. So there's, so it's like, I just saw that it's her ordination anniversaries. But anyways, the long story short is I was pastor here at First Christian Church, which I say I was called from the pew. I grew up in a large non-denominational church, then was in the Southern Baptist Church for college, and served in First Baptist Church of Fairborn, so First Baptist. We had a lot of firsts here. And then I came here, and I didn't really know what my next step in ministry was, and I ended up being called from the pew to serve First Christian Church of Gainesville. And now I'm outreach pastor here at Meizon Church, as we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do next as a congregation. Is at about the time that I had met Kevin and then Miranda and the staff of Meizon, and we clicked right away. Like, Kevin and I met for about 4 hours the first time that we met, and started dreaming about what we could do together. Like, I think I must be a good convincer, because I had him convinced that he wanted to move into this space.
it was
right
the
away.
Mexican food that we were eating, I think. Yeah, so how did I get here? Man, we only have a few minutes. All right, so how did I get here? I grew up in the church. I remember as a little kid, I was at church Tuesday mornings for women's Bible study with my mom. We had Wednesday night hymn sing at my church. We had Thursday night choir practice. And then we were at church on Sunday mornings and Sunday evenings, because why not? And so I remember growing up and always being in church. Like, that was like the thing. And my church that I grew up in was like not like this. Like, we had a choir and an organ, and if they were feeling really risky, they would play a song on the piano. So that was like, yeah. So that's the kind of church I grew up in. And so obviously, if you know me for more than 5 minutes, you know that I probably didn't last very long in that as I grew up, and I didn't. So as an adult, once I kind of was in my teen years, I was in bands, I was playing guitar, and of course, guitar is not allowed in the kind of church I grew up in. And so I immediately needed to find an outlet somewhere for my guitar playing, which led me into sort of the charismatic and Pentecostal world of church culture. Not because I was seeking that out, other than I just wanted to belong. And so I played guitar, and there was actually a demand for guitar players in the Pentecostal church world, and so that's kind of how I ended up there. And my experience was sort of like, it was a roller coaster. I had good experiences and bad experiences in the Pentecostal church. Thankfully, I was at a really healthy church in Nashville for quite a while, and that's actually where I found my ordination. I went through their church planting kind of classes and got ordained as a minister there, and that was really, really great. Some really incredible supportive people that I'm still friends with today out of that community in Nashville, and then ended up in Gainesville just through ministry paths. Like, I was in South Carolina for 7 years doing youth ministry and music ministry at churches there, and then things change, things happen, leaderships change, people don't share the same vision. And so I ended up I think I shared about this last week. I got let go twice in a row. It was a double shot. It was like within 2 years, I was let go of 2 different church jobs. So I was let go of that church job in South Carolina, which brought us to Gainesville. And then within 2 years of being here in Gainesville, I was let go of that church job. It was like a double whammy. And out of that came Meizon. So me and another pastor friend, some of you guys know Levi Lowry, who founded this church with me 3 years ago. He and I started Meizon Mission, and it was an online-only experience. It was, it was the middle of the pandemic, and we were just making services and devotionals and online resources for people during the pandemic. And we didn't really have a plan. We weren't really sure where this thing was going to go. I shared all this last week. You can go back and listen to the sermon from last week. But here we are, and we're on a journey, and I don't know what the picture looks like. I just know the part that I'm looking at right now, and the part that I'm looking at right now is really hopeful, and I'm really excited. So.
Amen.
I am Miranda. I am actually a Florida native. I have I know. These two aren't. So that's why I'm like, my family has been in Florida since before Florida was a state, which I think is kind of fun and cool.
Her family's made up of Florida men.
She knows Florida, man.
I do. And so I actually grew up in Chiefland, not too far from here, in the Methodist church. And I met Kevin when I was in another Methodist church here locally, and decided that, this is part of what I want to do too. So that's where I followed Kevin over here.
You weren't exactly excited about the idea of being a pastor, though.
I was not. I was not. It's still one of those excuse me, what? So yeah, for the longest time, Drake would say Pastor Miranda, and I would throw things at him.
She still throws things at me just for different reasons.
Yeah, just different reasons. Usually it's like I have a set of sponges, sometimes pens, but that's...
They're not typically actually harmful. There's no bodily harm, just mental harm.
I think I get my own share of mental harm, thank you.
Yeah, so moving on, so we're going to go to the next question, which is what are our roles? Some people just ask us sometimes, so what do y'all do? So for me, I am the lead pastor here. I really try to focus on the things that I'm good at. I think that's one of the things is sometimes titles are kind of confusing because it's what does that even mean? Lead pastor, what does that mean? Outreach pastor, what does that mean? Administrative pastor. And I think sometimes we kind of try to find the role that best fits what our giftings are, right? And so for me, I really, worship and production, obviously you can tell I'm really passionate about. Production is where most of my background is in. Outside of church work, I've done recording studio production, live production. I have a Grammy nomination for co-writing a song with an artist when I was in Nashville, and so I have a lot of background in production. Also, I'm really big on vision casting. I think my wife has always said I have this knack of seeing how things are gonna go before they happen. I have a good I hate saying this, they used to call it the prophetic voice, and I'm okay, that sounds really intense. It's not that intense. It's really, I don't know. But with that, I see things in people, and I want to encourage people. My big thing is I see gifts and talents and potential in people, and I want to encourage those people to move towards those things that they may not be able to see on their own. Going back to Miranda, it's I see in Miranda so much leadership and so much potential in her as a leader in the church, and the church needs her voice. And so I want to encourage her and come alongside her. So leadership development is really big for me. Team building is really big for me. And so those are just some of the things that I'm really passionate about in my role.
Yeah, so it was funny even this last week having the conversation of what an outreach pastor is. And I'm very proud to say that I'm the only outreach pastor I've ever known. I'm actually the only person. I've never heard the title before Kevin came up with it. Because I've known associate pastors and next steps pastors and executive pastors. And actually most of my friends are associate pastors. And so outreach pastor, can we turn that down a little bit? I'm ringing. What is an outreach pastor? So for me, believe it or not, it requires a lot of talking. So a lot of building, if you know me. It requires a lot of talking, a lot of building of relationships, social media. Basically, my job is to reach out or outreach to the community. So I don't just want to focus on what's happening in the pews on Sunday morning, but I actually want to focus on trying to build relationships with the types of people that need to know that they belong here. Building relationships with, whether that be Santa Fe across the street or UF downtown, or building different groups to help show that you don't have to be what you thought you had to be in order to be a church, right? I was saying this morning that God invites all people to the table, not in spite of who they are, but because of who they are, and that's not a message that many churches share. And so when people say church, in fact, when I first moved to Gainesville, it was the hardest thing for me was to say that I was a pastor and then immediately have to apologize for being a pastor because people's faces instantly sink because they've had bad church experiences. And so my job as outreach pastor is to kind of help mend those things and show them that if they're ready, they actually can belong here and that they actually do matter to God despite what they've been told.
So I am the administrative pastor, and I think of us like pieces of Swiss cheese. We all have different holes, but when we all layer together, like we get all the things covered. So
Anything that requires organization.
anything that requires organization
It's not on me.
Or
is
me.
not. Those come
Those
to
are
me.
our goals.
I do a lot of the finances and the databases. I make sure we get a newsletter sent out. And like I said, again, the organizational task, those are a lot of my things that I'm working on that I do as administrative pastor. Now, I will say one thing that's really interesting is that in other churches, as a woman, my role might actually be the administrative assistant. But one of the things that's really cool is that here at Meizon, we're really making sure that women's voices are heard and, acknowledging even that Jesus called women to be leaders. And so I think that is super interesting and empowering. And I love that about our church, which actually is one of our 3 statements of clarity, is that women are recognized and acknowledged as leaders.
Yeah.
And then, so we wanted to go through those 3 statements of clarity. So obviously, women are going to have an equal voice in our community. They're going to be equally capable of leading in any aspect and every aspect of who we are as a church. The second one is, our church started in 2020 in the middle of the global pandemic, but the other thing that was going on was there was a lot of social unrest going on about especially racial issues, and we had Black Lives Matter was going on during 2020. And what was really, I think, disappointing for me was not seeing the church step up into a place of speaking out against injustice, which is what the church should be doing. We see all these verses in the Old Testament about how we're supposed to break generational curses, and we're supposed to stand up and stand for the poor, stand for the neglected, And it was very disheartening for me, and so we really wanted to make sure that our church would be a church that was building bridges with communities of color, and that we would be a diverse community. It's been really awesome too, because people have stepped into our community that want to be a part of that and want to help build those bridges and be those voices, and to help us to not make the mistakes that maybe have been made in the past in church, and that's been really helpful.
Absolutely. I just want to say 2 couple of things so you guys are aware of what's happening. So I've been reading over Miranda's papers to apply for seminary and to come under the care of the denomination to pursue ordination. And so it's really cool to hear her say that stuff up there and then read it in a paper where she's finding her voice and realizing that women matter in church too, right? It's not just the white guy. But I would like to give her a round of applause for taking that step of faith in her
Absolutely.
security. And the other thing, as Kevin's talking about racial justice, I just wanted to let you guys know that our denomination approved a resolution unanimously by voice vote to oppose Christian nationalism. So I just thought that was worth a round of applause as well. The last thing, my statement of clarity, is that the fact that, and one of the reasons that I'm here, is that we believe that LGBTQIA+ persons are not broken, and that they matter to God. And not only are they not broken, and not only do they not matter to God, I find they matter to God. Not only do they matter to God, I find this, it's a struggling thing to say, because for so long, the church has said things like, you're welcome here, you belong here, and they've not really meant them. And so sometimes I struggle to find the words. And so when I say that you're welcome here, you belong here, that you matter to God, I also want to say that LGBTQIA+ people are celebrated here. And what I mean by celebrated is not that they get some sort of special attention or treatment, but in the same ways that we celebrate a straight marriage, we'll celebrate a gay one. In the same way that we celebrate, a typical heteronormative marriage, we will celebrate LGBTQIA+ people. And that God invites you, not in spite of who you are, but because of who you are, that you are welcome here, that you matter here. And that's something that when we talk about statements of clarity, the reason that we even use that term, the reason we think it's so important, is because so many times if you ask this question at your stereotypical church, the response is, well, maybe we should go get coffee this week, because they don't really want to give you an answer, and if they do, they don't want it to be in front of other people. We'd rather just get those out of the way up front. That this is who we are and this is what we stand for as a church.
Yeah, can I just cut in really quick on this one to you? I think there's something really powerful. This is a story I want to share with you. There was a family that came to visit a few months ago, and they're really good friends of mine, but they go to another church. But they were here, and in their church, they don't do communion very often, and when they do, the kids aren't in with them for communion. And so they have a little one that was with them, and they came forward for communion. It was the first time their little girl had taken communion, and Drake was serving the communion. And she sent me a message that week afterwards. And they're not, they don't have any dog in the fight on LGBTQ stuff, but she sent me a message, and she said, I think it's really powerful that I get to tell my daughter when she grows up that the first time she took communion, it was by a gay pastor. And that we get to be part of the last domino in a destructive church history that has hurt so many people over time and has kept people out of these spaces. I just think that's really powerful, and I just want to say that those kinds of messages are why we do that. Like, it's because we get to be the story that stops. We get to be the last domino in that story. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, well, that's a great story. I mean, I've not told that story, but this last week people kept asking, why do you do what you do? Like, why are you doing this Meizon thing?
Yeah.
And in these there was 4 or 5 conversations and it was always late conversations. We're talking about Meizon and what we're building, and I'm always like trying to fight back tears, which is really weird because it's like with people I know and friends. Because the thing is that I know that other people feel this way, and I know that people who aren't here yet are going to feel this way when they get here, but this is something that I needed very much personally. And this is a community that I never thought I'd see. It's always something that I thought I'd be pining after, but I wouldn't get to. And this is a community that we're building together, and that makes it that much more special.
Yeah, it's really good. All right, so moving on. So question 3, what is Meizon's mission and values?
Meizon Church exists. Okay, just kidding. But it's...
Here it comes. I think everybody could probably recite it.
You ready? You want to do it with me? Do you guys know it? Okay. Meizon comes from a Greek word that means greater. Meizon Church is all about creating greater spaces for people to hear and experience the good news of Jesus. I did my job over the summer.
I love it.
Say that much.
I love it.
So the second part of that is our values, and there's 5 B's, even though we usually focus on 3 of them. The first 3 are three big B's, 2 little B's. So the first 3 are belong, believe, become. And here at Meizon, we feel that people belong in our community, even if they choose not to believe the same things that we do. But when they do choose to believe in Jesus, we think they will become more like him. And 2 of the ways that we show some of those things are first through benevolence. So that's when we take our 10% of the gifts that you guys give and we distribute that to other organizations to help out them. And then our other B is beauty. And we know, I'm going to turn that one over to Kevin. That's Kevin's.
Yeah, so I think we talked about this a few weeks ago too, but I really believe that God shows himself through his beauty. He doesn't need us to tell people about him as much as he can tell people about himself. And when we point people towards the things that are beautiful in this world, like, I told that story a couple weeks ago about the Russian czar or whatever, and he went, he sent all these scouts to all the neighboring nations because they didn't have a religion, and he wanted to have like a religion for his country. And so they went to all these neighboring countries, and they came back, and the people who went to see the Christians at that time it was like Constantinople, they came back and they said, we don't know what we saw, but all we know is what we saw was incredibly beautiful. It's so beautiful, it must be from the real God. And so he went to see it for himself, and he didn't understand it. It wasn't about understanding. It was about seeing something in the worship and seeing something in the way that they expressed their love to God that was so incredibly beautiful that it changed their hearts and it moved them towards accepting and following Jesus. And I think beauty is so important to our community, and obviously this goes back to my heart for creative things and arts and all that stuff, but I really believe that beauty can save the world. I believe that beauty is enough. God can speak through beauty in such powerful and incredible ways. And so we're going to move on through that to, what's the next one there after that? Drew.
Where do we see Meizon going?
Well, question 4.
Oh, did we not do this one
No,
yet?
we didn't do
Oh,
that.
where do we see? So, that's right. This
Yeah,
feeds
leads
into
into that.
the third question. Where do we see Meizon going? So this is our vision. What's our vision for the future? And so beauty ties into that because I really believe that we have these 3 kind of points of vision right now. One is I see Meizon as a center for innovation for the creative community. A couple weeks ago we had the Gainesville Big Band here. We want to use this space so that we can promote the arts, so that we can promote beauty in our world, so that people who are creative have a space to create. You know, I don't know if you've spent 5 minutes listening to the news, but like in our schools, they don't do art anymore. They don't do music anymore in our schools.
Or
like,
cursive.
They don't do cursive. I feel that one. 'Cause my son has been like filling out applications and he has to sign his name and he's like, I don't know how to do cursive. Anyways, but like music and arts, it's like a big deal. Like these things are so important to our mental health. They're so important to being able to put beautiful things into the world and to being able to express ourselves through peaceful means. Like beauty is so important. And so we want to be a center of innovation for the creative community. We also, we want to, wait, what does that say?
Arts partnership.
Oh, yeah. We want to partner. I said the big band. Do Art was here last summer doing a summer camp program. Eventually, what I would love to see happen here is I would love for, my wife has done after-school program work for most of me knowing her. She's helped out with the YMCA and she's helped out at Sun Country Sports here in town. How cool would it be if there was an after-school program for the arts? Like where kids could come and they could learn about production and art and theater and all these things in the context of like something that's really encouraging of those things. Like it's just really cool. So that's one of the big things that I really believe strongly in for our vision moving forward.
The next part of our vision is homes for the spiritually homeless. And so one of those is we want to make sure there's places for the people who don't necessarily fit in to some of the traditional church spaces. And, one of the things that Drake and I were actually talking about this week was, like neurodiverse people. And how could we change up our service or change some of the places in our service to help make this space more friendly and more welcoming for those people? We also want to make sure that people who are falling through the cracks of traditional church can have a place. Like there's a soft landing here for them as well.
I fall through the cracks of traditional church, and I'm neurodiverse, so we're super falling through the cracks. And then the last one, marginalized people groups. I think one of the things that's really powerful to me, we had someone who used to attend here she's since passed on. She was an ordained minister within our denomination. And the last church that she had pastored, she said every Sunday that she preached as a female pastor, right, which again is not very normal, she would look up at her church and see that there was a slave balcony in the back. And what that did for her was remind her each and every week of her duty to invite and include and even apologize to the wrongs done to marginalized people groups, whether that be people of color or queer people. We want to be a place that apologizes for the hurts of the church, because the only way that we can move forward is by understanding and reconciling ourselves with what we have done, so we can do better in the future. And so we really want to be a place where marginalized people feel at home. We want to be a place where we don't have to brush the tough questions under the rug, but where we can embrace those and maybe even apologize for the ways that they've been hurt in the past.
Well, yeah, and we believe that God wants us to be reconciled. Like, I mean, that's a huge part of the gospel. Part of the gospel is that God desires us to be reconciled to each other. And so this is a way that we could do that.
Absolutely.
The other thing is, with the spiritually homeless is like, I don't know if you've noticed, but like people are asking a lot of questions about what they believe, it seems like, lately. And there's this really like hip word going around called deconstruction. Like everybody's like using that to just describe, like, it's kind of weird for me because I went through all this stuff and we just called it questioning our faith or like going through a season of questioning, right? But now it's called deconstruction. Whatever you call it, I don't really care about labels. But what I do know is that the church is traditionally not a really great place to process your questions. It's not generally a place where you go and you ask deep questions about faith and God without getting told how to do it. I don't think that God necessarily wants us to do faith in a specific way. I think it's a journey. I've told you guys this tons of times. It's like faith is a journey. It's not about a destination. It's about the fact that we're on a journey, and that journey looks different for everybody. Everybody is going through a different thing and a different process, and the fact that we're moving towards this thing is good. It's good that you're here. It's good that you're moving towards it. Your questions aren't too big for God to handle. They're not too big for us to work through together in a community. And we're not looking for like conformity in ideas here. We just want to encourage each other on the path. It's not about understanding. I said this earlier. It's like, my understanding is always changing. Like none of us believes the same things that we believed 5 years ago or 5 minutes ago. Like everybody's on a journey of discovering. We're all on a journey of learning about our world and about the people around us and about the God that we serve. And so how do we do that? How do we create an environment? And I think we're doing a really great job because I feel like people are able to come. And I've had lunch with a lot of you guys. I know a lot of you guys don't have the same ideas that even I have about God, and I love it. I think it's great. And I want to encourage that. I want to encourage you to continue to just be on your journey and move towards God, whatever that looks like, because it's good.
That idea is so important to me that my right arm is tattooed with that concept, just so you know. If you've never seen it before, you can ask me. I'll show you after service. But I actually have the faith journey concept on my arm because I agree with Kevin. It's one of those places where I arrived at this place where I understood that God wanted me to trust him and not my correct beliefs about him.
Yeah. That's really good.
So our next part of our vision is the hands and feet of Jesus. And with that, we have some different pieces, compassion efforts, your generosity, and some serving projects. And those have some really practical pieces. Kevin, you want to tell us about the house churches?
Yeah. So when we first started meeting in person during the pandemic, as the pandemic was kind of subsiding, we started house church, small groups. Small groups were the lifeblood of what we were doing. And maybe I kind of look back on it, I was like, maybe we overemphasized house churches in that season because a lot of the reason why, if you were here during the Meizon mission kind of phase of things, so FCC people probably don't know this as much, but Meizon mission people would know that we were meeting every other week. So we were having church every week, but we would have church in person for worship, but then we would have house church week because we believed so strongly that people should get together in small groups and do the small group thing. There's something that happens when you're in a smaller group that you can't do here. Like everybody comes here. I'm kind of really cynical about big church gatherings because I think people can hide in big church. I think it's really easy to go to church and never have to really be known by anybody. I can sneak out the back while they're singing the last song, kind of thing. And I know I just called some people out. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that. But I think sometimes we go to church and we want to kind of sneak in, sneak out, and I don't have to be vulnerable. I don't have to share my life. I don't have to be seen or known or heard. I can just do that thing. And there's something about house churches that is it's real hard.
And vulnerability.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot more happening. You kind of have to be known. You kind of have to let down your guard a little bit. And I really value that. I think it's really important for our relationships to do those kinds of things. And so house churches are really important. We're going to be getting ready to do some new house church groups this fall. I know they're going to look different than they have in the past, but I think it's going to be really good. And get plugged into a house church. It's going to be really good.
Yeah, and if you want to plug into a house church, but you don't have one that you think fits you or your people group that you typically associate with outside of this space, start a house church.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that I've had several people come up and say, hey, where's this house church? And I'm like, I already do a lot of church. Someone else start this house church, right? If you're interested in starting a house church, you can come see me, myself, or you can see me, myself, or I. You can see me or Miranda or Kevin.
Yeah. And now that I don't want to forget this because I'm my brain's going a million other places. But before I forget, the other thing is we have activity groups. This summer we've been trying to do some things all through the summer, different, low pressure sort of. We got together and eat ice cream last night. That's what we did.
There were 25 people.
There were 25 people who
night.
want to get together and eat
fun.
ice cream. That's great. What does that say about us? I don't know, but it's good. I got a group that gets together on Sunday nights and we watch Star Trek together. That's a thing. It's great. I love it. My wife gets together with a bunch of women every other Tuesday night, and they just hang out. It's just hanging out, getting to know each other. I think those things are really valuable too. And if a Bible study is really intimidating to you, it's totally okay. There's other groups that are way less intense and way more relational, and it's still really valuable for you to get involved in those ways.
In order to counteract the ice cream group, someone needs to start a CrossFit group, and that would be way more intense. Just going to say, I have a friend's church who has a CrossFit community group, which...
Get ripped.
Just people are crazy.
Ripped for Jesus. It's like the power team.
It is like, let's not go, we could just talk about power team. But my piece is we have to...
do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Oh, man. All right. We have to talk about house churches and groups and all those things, because one of the reasons I tell you to start a house church if we don't have a house church that fits you is because I want you to be enthusiastic about inviting people into that group. A lot of times it's easier to invite someone into a community group or an activity group or something that's more low-key, especially if they've been hurt by the church or aren't sure about church or not really sure if they belong here, because like I said before, you can say you belong here and they might not even believe that. There's been enough people who have been hurt by the church enough to not believe that sentiment or that statement. So how cool would it be if you could say, hey, we're actually going to be talking about, deconstruction in our faith, and we're going to do it at the Bowl. We're going to do it on a Wednesday night. And people are going to be way more apt to come to something like that than to church. And that all kind of leads into this concept of invite culture. And I grew up in a church where invite culture could be pretty toxic, right? Like I grew up in a youth group that said, well, if you bring enough free friends, you get a free set of Beats headphones. Like if you bring 5 friends, you're entered to win Beats. And like, what does that say about you? Like, I'm not good enough to be at youth group, right? Like, what does that say? In some churches, it ends up kind of being so much about invite culture that the butts in seats matter more than the people in the seats. But I would actually take this one step further and say, okay, yes, I understand that all of this is bad. And so there's a balance that we have to have as a church. We cannot be focused on the butts in the seats, right? Like we can't be focused on more people attending, but we can be focused on furthering God's mission in Gainesville. We can be focused on more people knowing that they matter to God and more people following the way of Jesus. Because if more people know that they matter to God, more people know that they belong here, and more people become more like Jesus in Gainesville, it will change Gainesville. It'll change our state, hopefully, please, and our governing, and our country and our world. Like that's what the way of Jesus will do. And so it's not about butts in seats, but it is about hearts being reconciled to the gospel and to the way of Jesus. And we firmly believe that people need to know that they matter to us and that they matter to God. And that's what our invite culture is all about. And so we've got these new invite cards. I don't know if you got one or if you've seen one, but they say you belong here. And then they say a fully inclusive faith community. That'll start a lot of really fun conversations, either in the good way or the bad way. And then it just has MeizonChurch.com. The concept is you're going to give this to your server with a tip. Do not leave it as the tip.
With the tip.
With the tip. If you leave it without a
Not
tip, you're
as the tip.
excommunicated.
With
yes.
the
With
tip.
the tip. And just kind of like hand these out and give these to people. Invite people into our community. Because we believe that more people need to know that they matter to us, they matter to God, that they belong here. Because if more people know that they belong here, there's more people that are going to become more like Jesus, and hopefully it'll change our city.
Well, and people need to know that this space exists,
Oh,
right?
yes.
It's like, why would you hide under a bushel of the light that God is shining here, right?
Amen.
I mean, that's so good.
So the last practical piece is serving teams. We would love to encourage you, if you call Meizon your church home, we'd love to encourage you to join one of our serving teams. Maybe that means you're going to get here and greet people as they come in the door, make sure that all the signs are out and take care of those things. Or maybe you would like to join Kylan and help out in kids, or maybe you want to hold babies, and when those babies arrive,
Not have babies, hold
not
babies.
have babies, hold babies.
Clarify that
Yes.
from last time.
Yes.
Okay, we have 3 questions.
We have 3 questions?
Yeah, we have 3.
Okay. So if you're interested in serving on any of those places, or you want to know more about that, please feel free to send us a text message or...
We're wrapping
Yeah.
things up. We're
Wrapping
wrapping
things
things
up.
up. I know it's getting late.
Here's the question that you're going to answer.
This first question says, which one of you has the best dance moves?
I'm not answering this question.
I think Drake has...
Can we just say, like, after watching the
The dance battle?
I
the
want
dance
you to
battle.
know that this question could have been answered a couple weeks ago. We had the arcade night at Dave & Buster's,
But
and
see-
Drake and I were going to do a face-off on Dance
We
Dance
were.
Revolution, but there was this other couple who was playing, and they were like serious about Dance Dance
They were.
Revolution. Like they were going to be there for a while, and so we had to run. We weren't able to settle.
And I had
it.
to take Brent to
But
see
someday we will
Transformers.
settle this.
We will. Well, I also just think after watching that dance battle, like most people would agree that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Sorry, that's yes, I think it's funny. And just, yeah, all right. And then the next one is here, Kevin.
Oh no! What is this one?
Why do we do this?
Why are we not having any traditional hymns? It depends on what you mean by traditional hymns. Creatively, like, we do bring in some hymns once in a while. I know they're not the driving force of our musical expression. They're not an every week thing, but every once in a while we'll throw in some Be Thou My Vision and some of these other classics that I really enjoy. There's some modern hymns that are out now that I think are more theologically probably helpful than some of the older hymns. I think that's really a lot of it is like some of the older hymns have some language in it and some stuff that just doesn't connect with people. And because we are an outward-facing church community, which means we have church for the people who aren't here yet, not necessarily
Yes.
the people who are here. So we're not building a church for us, we're building a church for the people who we want to see come into this place and to really see this greater space to hear the good news of Jesus. I think we want to kind of eliminate any kind of
Stumbling block.
yeah, old, like, sometimes, and it's like, and it's hard with triggering things for people, like, because sometimes the triggering thing isn't that bad, but it's bad for them. And so we're trying to kind of create environments where we're able to have a balance between these things. We're doing the old hymns once in a while because some of them are really strong and have some really, really foundational truths in them, and we want to really put those things out there. But as far as why don't we do it every week? It's really just, I think, more about us trying to connect with the people who are coming into this space who have no context for that. And how can we encourage them with where we are right now, today, in this culture?
I agree with everything you said, but I think one of the things that was really helpful to a lot of people that I talked to this last week at General Assembly was I said there are a handful of churches that are doing traditional and inclusive better than we were doing traditional and inclusive.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And there's nobody doing what we're doing, and there's nobody creating this greater space.
Right.
And there's nobody creating what we're creating, and so we're going to reach a special group.
Whoever
of people.
asked the question, I would love to have a conversation with you about it because it's way deeper than I want to get into
It is.
Today. But
Here's-
I will say this, is that Mainline doesn't do a really great job of modern worship and modern expression. They just don't. If you've been to a United Methodist Church, if you've been to any kind of Presbyterian church, if you've gone to any Mainline Church isn't good at doing it. And they want to be. They all say they want to be, but then they once they get it, then they ask the question, why don't we do hymns anymore? And so that's kind of the thing. It's we're just trying to be more modern expression, if that makes sense.
Kevin, you got another one for you.
I'll read
It's
it.
quick.
I'll read it
It's
to
Don't
you.
give me the
It's quick.
hard ones.
Who
not a hard
is
one.
Kevin's hat guy, and how can I get in on that?
Hat guy. Actually, I will say my hat guy, he's from England. His name's Hayden Spenceley. He's who turned me on to the driving cap. So, Hayden, if you're watching, thanks, bro.
I fully expected him to say TJ Maxx. What was the most surprising part of General Assembly? I don't know. It was all. I think the expression of worship that they chose. So they actually kind of chose a traditionally, more African American Methodist style of worship throughout the whole assembly. So it was like gospel music, and I really wasn't expecting that. They did Oceans, but in a gospel way, which was really
Drake
weird.
sent us some videos every now and then. I'm like, what are they doing?
What's happening?
What is happening?
I think that was pretty surprising. I really wasn't sure what to expect there. Wilson loved it. And then the next question, the same person asked, what is sin? That's a really tough question because that's a theological one. But
What is sin?
I would just say sin is anything that hurts ourselves or hurts others.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the best way to unpack sin is that God designed the world to function a certain way, and it doesn't. It doesn't function the way that God designed it to. And the reason why is because people make decisions to either A, hurt themselves or hurt others. And so I believe that God's creation is beautiful and sacred, and that God wants to protect his creation. And sin is the thing that is potentially harming his creation. And it's harmed because we make decisions that hurt ourselves and hurt others. And
the way of Jesus is kind of about escaping those decisions.
Without doing a super deep theological dive,
Yeah.
I think that's a good baseline.
Absolutely. And you can actually continue, not now, but you can continue to text these questions if you want to, or if you want to get coffee and talk about a specific question.
But
you can.
really want to get coffee and talk about
Like,
it. Not the other thing.
Yeah, not the other thing. Yeah.
All right, so the last little bit we're doing to wrap things up is our lightning round of questions.
All right, this is going to be fun. Ready?
All right.
Okay, cake or pie?
Pie.
Cake.
Okay, what is your ideal
Wait, you
outdoor...
didn't answer that.
Because I was asking the question.
No, you have to answer with the
No.
question.
I don't know, pie.
Okay.
But it has to be apple.
Ooh, if you don't like apple pie, that was the thing they used
You're
to
not
determine
American if you don't
were a
like apple
communist.
pie.
Yeah, back in the day.
yeah. All right, what's your ideal outside temperature? Not this.
When I was visiting my parents last week, we'd be outside. It'd be like 72. They'd be like, "Oh my
That
gosh,
was mine.
it's so
72?
hot out here," and I'm like,
What is that?
72.
"And not
72.
humid." I think
It's
62
perfect.
is mine. 62.
All right,
72. What's
black
yours?
beans or refried beans?
Black beans.
Depends on the situation.
Okay.
Like, if it's on a burrito, I want black beans. But if it's as my side, I want the refried beans.
Yeah, refried beans on the side every day, all day.
But
Nope,
not on my
for sure.
burrito.
What about with rice? You get rice because then black beans all the way every day.
Well, you can, so I get the fajita plate, and then you put the refried beans in the fajita.
No.
And it becomes like, it's like glue, like it's like a paste. Like you put it on there, and it like makes everything stick.
If it's
into the
paste in
thing.
your burrito or in your fajita,
the
how do you
fajita.
think it's on your insides? Do you think it's paste?
All right,
Probably.
We're
yes.
moving on. We're moving
All
on.
right,
Next page.
one.
All right.
Thanks, Eddie.
What does the fox say?
Um,
Ding, ding, ding. Okay. You can only eat one food for the next 2 weeks. What is it? Pizza.
Can Mexican just be like
Tacos.
one?
It could be tacos.
Can you say can you just pick like? Yeah, I guess you could say tacos.
Tacos.
Tacos?
Yeah, so you can't say Mexican. You could pick a thing.
Sure, tacos.
right.
Tacos. I'll say burritos. I'll go Mexican on this. This is good.
Okay. Are you a people person or a homebody?
Depends on the day.
I was much more of a people person until lately. Now I just hate everybody and want to be home.
No,
alone.
see, that's the problem. I'm a people person, and if I'm ever not talking, there's a problem. Yeah, if I'm homebody, then we got issues.
All right, giving presents.
2020 was really bad for me.
Me too.
I'm still recovering. All right, what else we got? Giving presents or getting presents?
Getting.
Neither.
I like giving presents. I think it's like nice to see like people.
Yeah.
Like reaction.
My husband's a gift giver, and so it's really good for me to be a gift getter because that's his love language is to give gifts. So it's fine. Yin and yang, it works well.
All right.
Taylor Swift or Katy Perry?
Katy Perry.
Meh.
Meh.
I'm
You have to have a
not-
strong opinion about this.
Whichever one my daughter puts on the radio.
Feel like I'm
Maggie, which one? Oh,
She's
she's back
not
there.
there. She's out with the kids.
The way.
I don't know. Swift
Ah,
then.
okay, she's a Swiftie. All right, go ahead.
Katy Perry, for sure. Okay, cooking or ordering out?
Cooking.
If I have to cook, it's ordering out. if I want cooking, if it's my husband cooking.
Ordering out. Okay, Super Mario or Zelda?
Super Mario is the only one I've played.
Only Super Mario Kart. That's the only iteration of any of these that I appreciate.
Super Paper Mario was mine.
Mario
Yeah,
Kart.
Mario for me, for sure. Harry Potter or Star Wars?
I wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter.
I know, me neither.
So, or read them. But maybe now, but that's a different,
I enjoyed reading them, but I also understand there's lots of issues with Harry Potter now. So
Like the fact that he's
So
like,
complicated.
yeah.
the fact that he's witchcraft and the occult, right?
No,
Like just my parents
no.
said.
No, there's other issues.
Those
Oh.
other issues.
Star Wars.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I enjoy Star Wars.
magic. It's whatever.
Magic.
Yeah.
Okay, if you could ask God one question, what would it be? This is the last one.
So
we went over these before, and I'm like,
yeah, mine's,
I would ask him to scan the QR code and fill out the Connect card.
I would probably ask him. I don't know. No, I'm not going to ask that. I was going to ask him about 2016, but
Ooh, deep.
I didn't say which way I'd ask. I just said I would ask about 2016.
Deep hit.
All
All right, wrapping up.
All right, so those are all fun. Those quick hit questions, and hopefully those encourage you to get to know us a little bit more. I know some of you know me well and don't know Kevin or Miranda as well. Some of you know Kevin well, but you don't know me as well. If you want to get to know us, shoot us a text, shoot us an email. Our first names at meizonmission.com is everything. I also just want to invite you to our next series that's coming out. So we're calling it Cord, and it's our core values. What do we stand for? Our three big B's. And she sounded, by the way, like an English teacher. Believe. So belong. So we have three core values, right? Belong, believe, and become. And we're going to be going over those over the next 3 weeks. We want you to come out, and we want you to invite others to come out to learn a little bit about who we are. The first week, I'm preaching, and I'm preaching on belong. If someone doesn't think they belong here, it's a great service to bring them to, is next week. I also just want to let you know one more time about these cards, these invite cards. The greeting team, the welcome team, the hospitality team, I got the right one the third time, is going to have these in the back and hand them out as you leave the sanctuary today. Because ultimately, we want other people to know and to understand this greater space. We want other people to know that they matter to God just as much as we found that we know that we matter to God when we've been able to be and participate and love. But we want to spread this Meizon mission of Meizon Church to others. Would you pray with me? God, I want to thank you so much for this opportunity we've had together this morning. This opportunity we've had, God, to learn just a little bit more about Meizon's heart for you, for the gospel. God, we pray that we would be ignited in this reality, that everyone in Gainesville, everyone in this world matters to you, that we would help them to know that they belong here, that we would help them to know that they matter to you, that they matter to us. God, that we would have the courage, maybe even the audacity to invite people into this thing that we're building. God, ultimately, we want this community to glorify you, that more people may become like Jesus. God, be with us as we go throughout this week. Help us to recognize more and more of your presence.